On a dark January night, the Costa Concordia struck submerged rocks, ripping a 70-meter gash in its hull. As water poured in, the ship began to tilt dangerously. Why did the captain lie to the passengers? What chilling coincidence played out in the dining room? Watch to uncover the chaos and heroism that followed in one of the most shocking maritime disasters since the Titanic. On 13th January 2012 at exactly 7:15 p.m., the world's largest Italian cruise ship began its long-awaited voyage. This was the magnificent vessel known as Costa Concordia. Its massive size was a wonder to most of us, even bigger than the Titanic legend, for its holding capacity was increased by an extra 2,000 passengers as 4,252 people were on board ready to unleash their journey. The Costa Concordia was gigantic, first by structure, and then in terms of entertainment alone. From 4 spacious swimming pools to 5 fine restaurants, then onto 13 lively bars, a casino full of excitement and games, sports facilities in the shape of a basketball court, a gym with sauna and Turkish bath, a very large fitness area, and even an F1 racing simulator for those who like a little adventure. Its first port of call was the city of Savona in Italy, where it was due to arrive within a day. However, 2.5 hours out of port, a jarring, piercing sound suddenly broke the serene atmosphere of the vessel. Then, all lights went off, and the ship started listing ominously to one side. The time was 9:45 p.m. Some passengers were dining, while others were in their cabins. Those who were sleeping woke up confused and emerged from their cabins to find out what was happening. Dinner plates slid off tables, indicating the ship's tilt. Over the intercom, an electrical failure was announced, but in reality, the engine had failed, a fact the captain deliberately kept from the passengers. Soon the ship inclined on the other side again, causing panic among the passengers. They felt as if they were experiencing another calamity similar to the Titanic sinking exactly 100 years earlier in 1912, adding a really eerie element to the situation. The song "My Heart Will Go On" from the Titanic was playing in the dining area when all of the lights went out and the ship began tilting. As the ship continued to tilt progressively, water began to fill the lower rooms. Panic ensued as passengers realized the gravity of the situation. The questions are, why weren't these passengers properly informed? Why was the captain so uncommunicative? The Costa Concordia belonged to Costa Concordia, an Italian company that initially engaged in cargo ships. They diversified into passenger services in 1948 and became one of the largest cruise companies in Europe before being acquired by Carnival Corporation in 2000, becoming a subsidiary of the world's biggest cruise operator. In June 2006, Costa Concordia launched the Costa Concordia as its largest Italian cruise ship, costing $570 million to build. Its captain, Francesco Schettino, had served with the company since 2002. At 7:18 p.m. on that memorable night, the Costa Concordia headed towards Savona. After 2 hours, it veered off course outside the sea lane. This deviation was deliberate, as Captain Schettino wanted to sail past the island of Giglio, Italy, to allow the people there to view the ship with all its lights on. This practice, called a sail-by, is risky, as large ships usually keep a minimum distance of 7 to 8 kilometers from the shore to stay in sufficiently deep waters. However, the Costa Concordia was only 150 meters from the shore, close to probable underwater hazards like rocks and reefs. Compounding the risk, it was nighttime and the vessel was sailing at high speed. A report from the Italian Ministry of Infrastructure and Transport later revealed that the ship indeed sailed at an unsafe distance from the shore that night. One would then question what drove the captain to take such a chance. Captain Schettino used to work under Senior Captain Mario Palumbo, who lived on Giglio Island. Schettino had called Palumbo to notify him of the sail-by and intended to salute the town with the ship's sign in his honor. However, Palumbo informed him that he was not on the island that night, but in another city. This call, at 9:40 p.m., was abruptly cut off. Moments later came the fatal collision. The ship ran onto submerged rocks, ripping a huge 70 meters gash in the hull. The impact occurred only 100 meters from the island, bringing the ship very close to land in the middle of the night. Water began pouring rapidly into the ship. Andrew Ecomoro, 26, woke up to find water already filling the hallway outside his cabin. He rushed to the engine area, only to find the door obstructed and the engines submerged. By 9:52 p.m., it was reported that the chief engineer and other officers had tried to fire up the emergency diesel generator but failed. The chief engineer boarded again to get hold of Captain Schettino to update him on the dire situation. Schettino still downplayed the severity to his passengers, telling them it was just a blackout. The ship continued to move away from the island until about 10 p.m., when Captain Schettino decided it would be better to sink in shallow water rather than in the open sea. This maneuver caused the ship to tilt even more acutely. The ship's crisis coordinator, Roberto Ferrarini, called Captain Schettino twice at about 10:05 p.m. Only in the second call did Schettino acknowledge the seriousness of the situation. Had he admitted it earlier, the situation might have been more controlled. As the ship continued to list dangerously, the radio operator requested the Coast Guard for tugboats at 10:20 p.m., but the extent of the emergency was downplayed. At 10:33 p.m., the general emergency alarm was finally raised and passengers were instructed to assemble in emergency areas. By 10:48 p.m., the ship had listed to a dangerous 30 degrees. At 10:54 p.m., with the crisis escalating, Schettino finally ordered the ship abandoned. With over 4,200 people on board and the ship listing precariously, chaos erupted. Some crew members, frustrated by Schettino's lack of leadership, began evacuating passengers on their own. A steward instructed passengers to bring their coats and life jackets before the official announcement by the captain. In the ensuing chaos, some passengers who could swim jumped into the water and started swimming toward land. The ship was heeling more and more to the side, making it hard for passengers to reach the exits, especially from the high decks. On board were heroes like Carolina Paulino, one of 11 security staff and the only woman who personally helped a blind woman onto a lifeboat. Other crew members hoisted wheelchair-bound passengers on their shoulders to safety. An Indian waiter, Russell Rebello, helped passengers until his last breath but was among those who couldn't be saved. These acts of valor contrast greatly with the actions of Captain Schettino, who abandoned his ship at 11:19 p.m., being one of the first people to leave. In total contrast, Deputy Mayor of Giglio Island, Mario Pellegrini, showed many acts of courage by joining the rescue efforts. He swam into the sea to help trapped passengers. At about 11:38 p.m., there were still around 400 people trapped inside the ship. The Italian Coast Guard and other rescue services saved hundreds more. At 12:42 am, an enraged call was placed by Coast Guard Commander Captain Gregorio De Falco to Captain Schettino, ordering him to return to the ship and coordinate rescue efforts, but he refused. Therefore, Schettino earned the nickname Captain Coward. At dawn, the true magnitude of the disaster became all too clear. Over 150 meters of the ship gashed wide open, and 32 innocent lives lost despite their rescue efforts. The inhabitants of Giglio Island sheltered the survivors, opening doors and homes and community spaces for them. The rescue process was lengthy, taking several weeks with the help of the Italian Navy, Coast Guard, Fire and Rescue Service, and many divers. The ship was declared a constructive total loss, and arrangements for the removal of fuel and salvaging the wreck were made. Fuel extraction started on February 12, 2012, and continued for over a month. The deeper challenge lay in uprighting the ship and towing it to port. This intricate engineering feat was completed in July 2014 at a cost of $1.2 billion. The Costa Concordia disaster led to many legal battles. The company refunded passengers and added another €1,000, approximately $1,000, for every surviving passenger. The families of the deceased were awarded undisclosed sums. In total, the disaster cost Costa Concordia about $1 billion. Captain Schettino was eventually tried for manslaughter and sentenced to 16 years in prison in 2017. His former boss described him as a habitual liar. In contrast to Schettino, another ship's captain named Roberto Boggio, who was on holiday on the Concordia, helped passengers off the ship until the very end. He said afterward that this was just the duty of any captain and human being. 5 other officers were also arrested and sentenced to 2-year jail terms each. Today, Captain Schettino is serving his sentence. This disaster serves as a significant lesson on the consequences of poor leadership and highlights the importance of integrity and courage in the face of crisis. It teaches us never to leave people who cannot admit their mistakes in charge. Line leaders who cover up their mistakes put many people in danger. What do you think about the Costa Concordia disaster? Share your thoughts and comments below. Don't forget to subscribe for more gripping stories and hit the bell icon to stay updated.